right. Hello, everyone, and apologies for the delay there. I appreciate all of your patience. I'm not sure exactly what the issue was. It seems that there's an issue on YouTube's end. I ended up switching over to the backup server, and now it's working. I appreciate Marcus helping me troubleshoot that a little bit. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the issue was, but it looks like we're up to go now. We're about 25 minutes late, so I really apologize for that. And if you've stuck around, I really appreciate it. And we're gonna go through some exciting stuff today. First of all, I want to shout out Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz. He, if you keep up with the FIBA Basketball World Cup, they beat the U.S. yesterday, which I was sad about. But he had a great game. I'm a big Jazz fan. Donovan Mitchell also had a great game for the Jazz, so that was pretty cool. Just wanted to give him a quick shout out because I'm wearing his jersey right now. So, but thank you all for joining. And if you've taken a look at the TBS repo, or you've just been looking at Twitter or something like that, you know that we recently published a GCP stack. So I'm going to go through that a little bit today. Next show, I think Marcus is going to get on, and he's going to go through it a little more in depth, which will be really cool, and he'll talk about the stack manager and all those sorts of things. But I'm just going to give a brief overview, and it's kind of like from a user's perspective. I primarily work on the services side of things. So I actually don't have a ton of familiarity with the stack manager, so hopefully we'll both be learning a little bit while going through this. So I'll go ahead and switch over so you can see my screen here. So let me also check the comments real quick, see if there's anyone hanging around. It doesn't look like there's any new comments, but it looks like Marcus and Jared and Phil are all on here. So thanks for joining, guys. If there's anyone else, please feel free to introduce yourself, and I will make sure to look at the comments from time to time and see if I can give a shout out to everyone who joins. So thanks for everyone for being on. So like I said, we did recently announce the stack is for GCP. The GCP provider is the official way to use GCP resources in Crossplane. So if you want to be more in tune with that and those sorts of announcements, then you can join the Crossplane Slack. There's a link to this on the repo if you'd like to be able to go to that and kind of join in decision making and that sort of thing. So you'll see the other day that Jared announced that the GCP stack is now the official way to go, and we have this documentation for installing it. And actually, as of 11:17 Central last night, the Azure stack is also ready to go. And so we could take a look at that as well. We'll see if we have time. We're a little short because of the technical difficulties today. But if we have an opportunity to do that, then we will. So let's go ahead and just look at some of these installation instructions. And I'll also go through a little bit the motivation for stacks and kind of how they work alongside core Crossplane. So if you want to know about some of the vision and design for stacks, then you can always go in and look at the design documents here. And there's a number of them. Complex workloads are somewhat related to stacks, but this one in particular, Crossplane Stacks, as the name is appropriate, talks a little bit about how the stacks will work, how they're registered, how they're installed, etc. And then if you go and look in the Crossplane organization, you'll see these stacks that we've started to break out. So basically in core Crossplane, which is what we're now referring to the initial Crossplane repo as, and also let me make sure there's no comments here. Just want to make sure all of the streaming is coming through okay. All right. Jared's praying to the OBS deities, he says. So anyway, we've broken out these providers from the core Crossplane repo. So you'll see Stack-GCP, Stack AWS, and Stack Azure. And what that allows us to do is basically allow anyone to bring their own stacks. So if you are a managed service provider and you have, resources that you provide through an API, then you can go ahead and create a stack for that and run it with Crossplane, allowing people to dynamically provision resources agnostically across providers, including your stack, your provider. And so it just makes it a more pluggable architecture and allows you also to, let's say you use GCP and AWS in your organization and you don't really use Azure very much, or you use Azure and AWS or Azure and GCP, then it allows you to not have kind of those extra resource types in there. Let's say you're never going to provision anything on GCP, then you really don't need the ability to provision a GCP bucket, and it's really just noise in your cluster. So you probably don't want that. So this allows you to kind of just decide what you want to install. So we're going to go from the very, very beginning, setting this up. Like I said, I actually haven't done this before. I've been running them kind of like side by side, but we're going to go through creating a stack request and everything like that and show the full kind of installation as described in the docs. So thank you, Jared, for these new docs. And yeah, so this should be pretty fun. I'm excited for it. Then we'll provision some resources, of course, just for fun. So like I said, we are going to start with the GCP stack. That was the first one that was released. So this is the core Crossplane repo here. And what you can see is we still have AWS in here, but there's no GCP or Azure resource types in here. And there's also no clients or controllers for them because they live separately in their own repo now. So the first thing you want to know is that when you run Crossplane, it actually compiles to a binary that can do two different things. So you have the core Crossplane process, which is running things like the default class reconcilers and that sort of thing. And then you have the stack manager, which basically allows you to manage these stacks and install them using stack requests. And if you look into the actual command here, sorry about that, you can see that we actually have flags that specify what you want to run. So if you don't specify any flag, then you're just running the core Crossplane. But if you specify stack manage, then you'd be running the stack manager. And like I said, it's the controllers and reconcilers for running a stack on Crossplane. So let's see what it tells us about just getting started here. So it looks like you can use any cluster you'd like. So you can always do that with Crossplane. It can be installed as a pod on any cluster. I like to use kind. I'm not exactly sure. I had some issues with running both the stack manager and core Crossplane with kind because they both were using the same port for the metric server. So if you're running them locally, you can run into some issues. But let's see if we can get it going anyway. I'm not sure that we actually even need, well, let's just create a cluster and see what happens. So kind is really a nice tool. So I talked about it last TBS episode. So kind stands for Kubernetes in Docker, which is really an interesting kind of proposition because you usually think about Kubernetes, orchestrating nodes that have, a container runtime on them. And so it allows you to provision workloads across nodes. So what we're doing is we're basically running Kubernetes locally using Docker. So you have a little bit of inception happening there. And it's really actually an interesting project. And I think on the recent Kubernetes podcast, which Google puts out there, they had, I believe his name is Ben Elder. I may be getting that wrong. I apologize if so. But he was on talking about kind and kind of how it's composed and that sort of thing. And it was a very, very interesting episode. So I definitely recommend checking that out. I'm going to check in with the comments here since we've been going for a little while. See if there's anything. Yeah, so if you watched the last episode, Jared just said you haven't done it before. Of course, it will work first try, right? So that is correct. I definitely have not done this before. We've been doing a big push for 0.3, which is going to be a release next week, and so I haven't actually been running these things separately. And let me just see what Marcus says here. There we go. And so, yeah, last week I was doing a demo where we basically posted a message to Slack using Crossplane Runtime, which is our library for basically writing controllers that manage external resources. So when I did that, it obviously didn't work the first time. It ended up being an issue with my Slack API access token. And so I'm a little bit like skittish around live demos right now because we did have that that troubleshooting, but we worked through it, which is, I think, if you encounter adversity and then you move past it, then it's probably better than not encountering adversity. So anyway, enough on that. So we've got our kind cluster up here, and I believe I already set up. Let's see. I want to make sure that I'm talking to it correctly. Yep, so we have these pods running here. All right, let's create a new window here, and I don't remember. No, okay, so I need to, so when you start the, let's see, when you start the kind cluster, you have to set your kube config to talk to it correctly. So I haven't done that in this window I just opened here. So we'll do that, and now it should work. So yes, we can get pods. So let's look at the stack manager here. And I'm kind of going through this a bit of a roundabout way. You can also just use some of these local scripts that we've used to be able to run it on microcates, minikube, etc., or just run it locally. And so, yeah, you can definitely just do that, and it's very simple, and there's specific commands up, down, basically makes it really easy to install. But we are going to do it using kind because I think that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. Oh, also, I meant to say this at the beginning of the show, and some of you may have missed it, which is completely reasonable because of the technical difficulties we're experiencing. But we have new intro music now, and I apologize for not bringing this up sooner. I'm really psyched about this. Daniel Susskind, who is the other Daniel on the Crossplane project, he makes some really great music. You can find it on SoundCloud, but he approached me and asked if there's anything special about the music that we used. And so the original music that I used was basically from going to YouTube and saying, like, what music can I not get sued to use? So basically just something that was free that sounded somewhat upbeat. And he was like, I think I could make something, it'd be from kind of the Crossplane team. And I said, that'd be really cool. So I was pretty excited about that. And his turnaround was like 24 hours. He had something really good. So at the end of the show, I'll switch back over to the placeholder, which is just that image, and I'll play the music again, just so y'all can hear it. But shout out to him because it's really cool to have our own music. So I'm pretty excited about that. So that's Daniel Susskind who made that. Right. Okay. So now what we want to do is install the Crossplane. So, and it looks like I just got another message. Okay, we're good. So let's do it from master. So I'm not sure if this is going to work with kind here. But we're going to give it a try. So basically what we're doing is adding Crossplane master. And we'll see here what it gives us. So yep, we've got Crossplane master here. We also have the GitLab controller. Let's see, chart version. So this is published every time we merge a PR. So let's see here. Yeah, with all automated testing passing. So we want to run this. Once again, I'm not exactly sure this is going to work with kind, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. So the version, I believe, is the chart version that we want here, but let me check. You can also use the master channel, so 0.0.0. Oh, they're the same. Well, sorry about that. Yeah, so it's not going to work with Tiller. So what we can do instead is we can just run it directly locally, because we don't have Tiller installed in this cluster here, which I guess we could install. Let's install Tiller. Why not? So I'm going to look at how we do this in Minikube here. Or let's just try and run it directly. So what we want to do is, well, first what we need to do is install all of our charts here. We already have that. So in the Kubernetes, in the Crossplane repo here, all of our charts are in the charts folder. This is similar to Kubernetes and any kube builder project or anything like that. So they're in charts, Crossplane, CRDs. So we basically have all our types here. We have AWS in here for now. That should be going away probably today, actually. And so those types will be moved into the Stack AWS, which we've already done with Stack-GCP and Stack Azure. So we'll do charts. Maybe. They're not called charts. Oh, cluster. I use this every day. I'm not sure how I forgot that. All right, and we want to do that recursively. So basically, we're going to add all of those CRDs to our Kubernetes cluster, which we're running with kind. And now that those are there, including, as you'll see here, let's see. Yeah, stack requests and stacks here. So these are actual CRDs that we install. And you'll see that we use them to add the GCP stack here in a moment. So command, Crossplane, main, and I believe stack manage will do it for us. We'll see here if it will. All right, so there we have the Stack Manager running. So once again, if you don't provide Stack Manager, it's just going to run core Crossplane. So actually, important to know that we are not actually enabling the ability to run a default class right now. The default class controllers are not configured, but we're not going to focus on that for this anyway, so we should be fine. Instead, we're going to go ahead and try and install the GCP stack. All right. And let me open up the TBS repo here so that I can include this in assets. So what is this, episode 2? Or it's actually episode 3, but we're indexing as 2. We might clean this up later, but for now, we'll just make this GCP stack.yaml directly in this assets folder. All right. So we have that now, and I'm going to move this over here. And another thing we're going to want to do is set up our kube config here. Gosh, having trouble highlighting today. All right, so let's check that. All right, so we can get them there. We're running our stack manager locally. And what we want to do is apply the Stack-GCP that we just created. So let's try that. All right. Cannot detect the pod name. I'm guessing this has to do with not running the Crossplane core pod as well. So we're going to need to go ahead and install that. And the reason why we can't run them both locally right now is because they're using the same metric server, which could definitely be corrected in the future. But we can go ahead and just install Tiller for now and then install Crossplane that way. But it was a fun little try, wasn't it? So let's see. We need to scripter. So we need to apply this Helm RBAC, which I believe is in templates. No, it's not. It is in Helm RBAC.yaml. Let's find that. Well, I think when you run locally, you have to override the image name with an environment variable, is what Marcus says here. I wonder if this is in the, oh, this is in local. I should have just done this from the beginning. I think this was contributed by Daniel Suskin also. Oh, this says some, I'm not sure, maybe not. Might have made that up. All right. Let's give this a try. and I want to make sure that, oh, Stack Manager image, I see. All right, so first thing we're going to do here is build a new image. Hopefully this doesn't increase the Marcus and Jared are yelling at each other in the comments, it looks like. Hopefully, sometimes I have some trouble with Golang CI lint taking up a lot of my computer's stamina, so we'll see here if this works for us. It's what everyone wants to do, build while you're live streaming. Well, looks like it's working for us, so that's positive. All right, perfect. Awesome. All right, so what's this going to do? We're going to install Helm RBAC tiller, deploy tiller, and then we're going to copy the image to cluster. Awesome. All right. So cluster local, I think. Yep. And we're going to do, I believe the command was up. Yep, so that's going to install the prereqs there. Awesome. So it looks like tiller is being installed. This happens to me actually relatively frequently, which I think is just like a good thing to remember. A lot of times I'll be like, well, I should go ahead and I need to kind of like do this all from scratch. And a lot of times there's already been something written by someone who is very talented. And not just for Crossplane, I'm talking in general. I see this a lot in the Kubernetes community, is I'll think I need to do some workaround just to test something out, or to like update dependencies. I was recently updating some dependencies with a PR in Kubernetes, and there were some really helpful scripts to help me do that, and I just completely overlooked them. So it's always helpful to look for things that have already been created. Someone's probably seen your problem before, especially if it's a large project like Kubernetes. So we have this local here that helps us do this. All right. So looks like we need to Helm install. And I already installed the CRDs manually, so we'll see if it doesn't like that or not. I think it uses apply, which should make it okay. No. Oh, Crossplane. Yeah, so it doesn't like that. So I'm going to go back up to this. Oh, wait, that was, sorry about that. And the other one. So I'm going to delete these. It looks like we might have gotten a message in Slack. All right. Let me check that message real quick. I just want to make sure that there isn't someone who had a question for the show that they posted in Slack. No, it is in TBS, so it probably is. All right. Oh, no, that's Marcus. Oh, wonderful. We'll take this time. This is great. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, but I believe Cyan is looking to contribute. So really appreciate you joining Slack, and you're getting a shout out on TBS. Hope that's okay with you. But thank you for being willing to contribute. Really appreciate that. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help. All right, so now we'll try Helm install. A release name Crossplane. I see. So this is because we already installed before. Actually, the easiest way to do this is probably just to delete the cluster and recreate it, which you definitely do not have to do. I could have just uninstalled it. you do not have to delete your cluster to update that. It's just I already had a release Crossplane in there. I probably should have done update. I believe that's one of the commands we have. Let me check here again, see if we have any comments. Yes, Marcus is always helping me out with, so we have the same laptops. We have Dell XPS 15s, and we both manually installed Ubuntu on them. So he's always helping me out because he is a very, very knowledgeable Linux user, so much more than me, and so he's always helping me out. So you can also get some of his wisdom in the comments today. All right. So we were doing it here. All right, so let's Helm install. Cannot find, oh, sorry guys. Need to reinstall Tiller in the new cluster. Also, another thing, I should have been more cognizant of this from the beginning. I got some feedback last time that my the view of me in the bottom corner there can sometimes block what I'm doing on the screen. I don't think we've had too many instances of that so far this show, but I'll try to be cognizant of it going forward. All right. Awesome. So we have it installed here. Let's see if we can see any pods running here. So we do. Well, it looks like it didn't pull the image though. Set image pull policy, never. That's gonna be our issue there, I believe. So I didn't already have the image. I think in the others we set the image pull policy differently. Oh no, that's never also. Huh, interesting. Make sure. Image pull policy never. Let's try Helm upgrade. I think might do it for us. Helm upgrade. Let's see. Image never pull. Let's just try. Well, it should be copying it over correctly. Not even actually sure what the, let's try this here. I'm still getting error image never pull. If anyone in the comments has thoughts on this, I actually haven't encountered this before. But we can try it here. We'll do Helm delete and then Helm install again. Marcus says he naively runs the up command too. Error image pool. Okay, so it's having an issue getting the image, which it should be copied over. Oh, you need to introduce that. Ah, I see, since we're running it in kind. Let's see. Let me change this back. And let's see here. Javad, if you have that handy on how to introduce that to Docker. Let's see, we have our local one. It should be in Docker, I believe, though, because I believe we built it locally. But if you have a command to be able to do that easily, feel free to add it there. Oh, this tells me I need to clear out my Docker images. So it looks like that it's here. So I'm not sure why that would be happening. So they're deleted now. Let me see if I can find it. All right. So we're going to do some live learning here. Let me move this over so everyone can see what I'm doing. I am looking at Stack Overflow. Here we go. If you just need Crossplane installed on Kind, you could just run okay. We'll try what Javad's given us here. See if it works for us. Make end-to-end. Let's see. If you just need Crossplane installed on Kind, well, we'll give it a shot. See what happens. Looks like we don't have end-to-end defined in our makefile anymore. Or was I in the wrong? Ah, it's because I'm in the wrong place. We'll do it over here. It's because we already have. Let's delete our cluster and try that again. I'm not sure if this is going to keep it running though, so we'll see here. In the meantime, see if we can. Let's see, it tries to pull it from Docker Hub. So it should be able to get it locally, I believe. But we'll see here if this works. Once again, another great thing that Javad has created here that I wasn't aware of. So look, it's installing Tiller for us. It's basically running a lot of those commands that we did manually earlier. And I do promise we will get to installing the GCP stack. Apologize for the delays here. Thanks, Javad. So this skip cleanup true flag, he says, is going to keep kind running for us with Crossplane there. So this is just really, really helpful. And he's got these checks running for us. Awesome. Thank you for that, Javad. Really appreciate that. Getting me out of a jam here. So let's see if we can. Well, and we'll just get pods, and we should see both of these running here. Oh, we spelled namespaces correct. All right, so we have the Stack Manager running. Thank you to everyone for weathering through that with me. Let's see if we can tail the logs here for the Stack Manager. So it's in Crossplane system here. And copy that over. All right, so we've got the logs, and then I believe, is it -F? Yeah, that's going to tail the logs for us here. All right, so we can get back to our original goal here. Let me get rid of this window, and we'll look back at the Crossplane docs again. All right, so we've already created this YAML file here, and now we're going to go ahead and install it. All right. And that's going to be GCP stack.yaml, GCP namespace created. All right, so what you see here is our stack request controller reconciling the stack request. So it looks like install job not completed, and awesome. So it looks like we are installing all of these different types here, and we successfully reconciled. So updating not supported yet, but it looks like we are successfully reconciling. And here you can see we have GKE cluster, GKE cluster classes, global addresses, networks, subnetworks, etc. So we have all these different things installed. So before this, we only had these installed, and you'll see that none of the GCP things are in here. We still have AWS, but as I said, that's going to be moved out shortly. But now, I bet if we, I think you can get CRDs. Yeah, so as you can see here, all of these GCP CRDs are now installed. So we have bucket classes, cloud memory store instances, etc. And let's take a look quickly over at Stack-GCP. So these are kind of similar to what core Crossplane looks like in some ways in terms of directory structure. And they were actually copied over from core Crossplane by essentially forking the repo and then just cherry picking the commits that were related to the files. So that's why we have 690 commits in the GCP stack repo, even though it's brand new, which is really helpful because you can see the history of these different controllers that used to exist in core Crossplane. And so you can see how they've changed over time, so you have a little more context. It wasn't just a copy paste. But the cool thing about this is that it has basically its own image that's running, and the Stack Manager takes care of running that for us. And so you can see here that we have this Stack-GCP pod that's now running in the GCP namespace, along with all of those different CRDs that were introduced. So any stack you install, basically the stack manager is going to start up that pod for you, have it running, and then it's going to handle all of the controllers and reconciliation for resources on that provider. And like I said, that really allows you to create your own stacks. And we could take the Slack stack that I created last week, for instance, and it was just implemented as a generic kind of queue builder project, but we could change that to be a Crossplane stack, and we actually have a nice CLI that's been in development here that allows you to set up your own stacks. And I'm not going to go through this today, but we will definitely have a TBS episode, maybe the one that Marcus does next week. I know Daniel Suskin's done a lot of work on this. Seems like he's getting a lot of shout outs this episode, so great work, Daniel. But so we do have a tool that's going to make this a lot easier and helps you kind of build on top of Cube Builder here. So that's really handy. And so you can create your own stacks, and then you can just run them in the stack manager in core Crossplane. Will go about kind of like keeping that running and making sure it's provisioning resources and that sort of thing as you have specified. So kind of just to round out here a little bit, we can just do something simple like provision a bucket on GCP. So we have some examples here in the examples folder. And provisioning a bucket is not that exciting, I know, but it will show that, you know, kind of after you install a stack, you are able to then provision resources on that provider. So this is under storage on, yeah, so I don't think we have any buckets created here, so it'll be real easy to tell when we create one. I might have overpromised there for Marcus in the next TBS, which he's going to be hosting, about using the Stack CLI. It may not be the next one, it may be the one after that or the one after that, but we will demonstrate how to use it, and I'm sure we'll have some great documentation around that as well. All right. So we're going to create a bucket on GCP, and we're going to provision it dynamically, which essentially means that we're going to create a class that specifies how we want it to be provisioned and where, and then we're going to create a claim that references that class. And you can see GCS bucket. And we are going to see that that bucket will be created. So we can go ahead and do that here. Examples, storage, I think bucket maybe, yep, GCP. Jared says enough content to renew TBS for season 2. I hope so. Maybe you can get a host that knows how to install Crossplane though. Just kidding. I'm not that self-deprecating. All right, so we've created this resource class here, which the class by itself is not reconciled by anything, so we won't see any output or anything like that. But what we will be able to see, and it would probably be good if I went ahead and did this. I want to just tail the logs from the GCP pod. So that you can see what happens. Let's see here. Yeah, so that you can see what happens when we provision a new resource here. All right, so it looks like this is our Stack-GCP pod. So we'll do kubectl. And it's in namespace GCP, and we'll do logs. Let me copy that. And we will tail those logs. So you can see here that we've got these controllers started up for the different sorts of resources we have here, but we actually haven't gotten any messages since that initial setup and adding those to the manager. All right. So what I'm also going to do here, and I'm not going to go into this right now, but I'm going to create a GCP provider, which basically allows me to connect to my GCP account. There's documentation on how to do this on Crossplane. We've done it before in previous TBS episodes. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, of course, but I'm not going to get into it too much right now. Let's see. No matches for kind provider in version GCP. Another important thing here is that the GCP, the stacks, when they've gotten broken out, we are increasing version or incrementing version to v1 alpha 2. So that's why we weren't able to create the provider there. So I need to go to GCP provider.yaml and let me increment this to v1 alpha 2. And hold on, let me do kill here, which will just delete that. These are just simple scripts that I've written to be able to quickly create my providers and some other classes here. You'll see it tried to delete some things I hadn't created. But let's try and run that again. All right, yeah, that's fine. Essentially what this is for another thing, I was creating some other classes and that sort of thing, and this one wasn't incremented to v1 alpha 2, but we're not going to use those, so it's totally fine. Yeah, so Jared notes that the examples in core Crossplane have been updated to v1 alpha 2. This was a provider that I was using from a different, you can see this is a local repo for me, Crossplane Playground. So yeah, if you use the examples from core Crossplane here, you'll see. So this is v1 alpha 1 because this is core Crossplane. But you'll see here that bucket class is v1 alpha 2, and that's why it was successfully created without having to update that. So thanks for pointing that out, Jared. We are up to date there. All right, so now what we're going to do is create a claim. So the claims live in core Crossplane, but the claim controllers for the specific underlying resource live in Stack-GCP. And I probably need to get to wrapping up here, but I just want to point this out real quickly because I think it's an important distinction. It can get kind of confusing about where different things get reconciled. But as you'll see in the controller here, and we're going to do a bucket, which is in storage here. Claim.go is where we're creating this claim controller. And so here we're passing in the claim kind and then the resource kind, or the class kind. And what that's going to do is basically create a controller that says, you know, if a claim of this type of bucket group version kind is created, then and it references a class that has a GCP bucket. So this is v1 alpha 2. This is an internal package here to this stack. If it has a reference to that type of class, then we want to use this reconciler. Likewise, in AWS and Azure, there is a claim controller for bucket, the core Crossplane concept of a bucket that uses class kind of the AWS and Azure buckets. Well, Azure calls them something different, but essentially they're parallel to a bucket. And so it will look for those and only reconcile if it references a bucket of its type, excuse me. And it uses predicates to be able to do that. All right, so we will create the claim here. So as you can see, the claim was created. Let's see. It looks like I am not getting reconciled here. So let's see what's going on. Manage resources available for use. It must be. Oh, I might not have. I'm sure that's actually what it is. It's not running at debug level, I'm guessing, but we can see. So this is taking a minute to refresh here. But when it does, you'll see that this bucket that we wanted is created. It has all the policies that we specified, or all the attributes that we specified in this resource class here. So location US, multi-regional, I'm choosing that example provider. And then you can see here, US, multi-region, etc. And then we can go ahead and clean that up by, we'll delete the claim, and since the reclaim policy is delete, it should delete that bucket for us. So that's going to be reconciled, and when we refresh this, hopefully I didn't do it too quickly so you don't lose the effect, but I'm guessing that it's going to be gone here. Yep, so we have no bucket left. So there we go. So this is something you've been able to do in Crossplane for a while, so you may be sitting here thinking, you know, why is this that much of an improvement, right? I could dynamically provision resources before, which is a great capability, but is this really something new? Well, it's really a forward-thinking move to be able to install stacks, because it allows the ecosystem and the community to grow kind of like arbitrarily without being confined to just, you know, these three major cloud providers, right? We want to provide access for any managed service provider to be able to allow users to provision resources on their platform. And by allowing stacks to happen, these can be, you know, created in the wild essentially. So, you know, you could create one, a repo. It could even be private. You just publish the image or something like that, which you probably don't want to do, but you could do that. You can develop your own. I could develop one on, you know, in my GitHub user, and be able to distribute that and allow people to install them and provision on there. Likewise, users don't have to, you know, include every provider, and there's many, you know, niche managed service providers that, you know, only provide maybe one fraction of what GCP or AWS and Azure do, and we want it to be such that they can also allow their resources to be utilized, and for people to move applications, you know, across clouds easily. And that's where that dynamic provisioning comes in. And when you have different stacks that can be added, that makes that a lot more open of a picture. And you know, Crossplane's mission is the multi-cloud open control plane. So this step is really enabling a large, vital part of our mission, our real mission. So it's really exciting that this is getting implemented. I'm really excited for V0.3, which is going to be coming out next week. There's a lot of other cool improvements in there as well. Things around class of service, portability, all those types of things. And we'll make sure to have that in documentation. But yeah, it should be a really exciting release. So I'm looking forward to it. As always, you can reach out to anyone in the Crossplane community. I probably shouldn't speak for everyone, but in general, everyone is very willing to give their time to help you get involved, you know, to assist you in any questions you may have. If you're an end user, if you want to start contributing, you can always reach out. And thank you especially to those that stayed on the live stream today with our technical difficulties that delayed us, probably 30 minutes almost. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm going to switch over to end this episode back to our placeholder image because that's going to allow you to hear Daniel Susskind's song that he made for us, which is really cool. And so, yeah, thank you for joining. Look for that 0.3 release. It's going to be coming out next week. And please feel free to reach out at any time. Have a great rest of your week.